I guess in its most recent discussion, we've heard about rail since the 70s. I used to represent the largest council district, Milani Mauka, Wahiawa, North Shore, all the way around to Kaneohe. So most people were very surprised that I supported rail because they thought, what's your district going to gain from this? I mean, they're the farthest from rail. They're not going to see any direct benefit. And it's because I wanted to help keep the country. It's because that I want to keep Wahiawa and North Shore, and make sure that we can preserve ag land that I supported rail. And I'll explain why. When I was growing up, I would be able to drive from Wahiawa to Waipahu, and it was just sugarcane fields. And I'm not saying that we should have, we could have done more to protect sugar, but you could see Honolulu change, and not necessarily for the better. We had more communities that were built that were very similar to the mainland. They were similar to Orange County. You saw more roads, more sidewalks, more schools, because we changed the way we developed. We stopped developing from main streets, and we started doing sprawl. So if, for instance, you take a community like Mililani, there's no main street. I mean, where are they going to have their parade? Right? There's no main street. You take a community like Wahiawa, you have California Avenue, and that's a main street. So you can see that newer communities were just planned communities that were part of suburbia. So the whole rail discussion for me is not necessarily about the specifics of how we're going to make the numbers work with the current situation, but how is Honolulu going to evolve? What is Honolulu going to look like? What's really the future? And I think most of you here will probably help determine that. How I look at Honolulu, and I'll explain it a little bit and tell you, hopefully that allows you to understand why I support rail, is I look at Honolulu as having the potential of the Geneva of the Pacific, where you're going to see a real metropolis. And right now, currently, we don't have that. Downtown is a very small, isolated area. In most major cities, you can walk for hours, right? How many people have been to other places on the mainland, and you've been to a major city and you can walk and walk and walk, and you don't realize, man, I walked a lot. But that doesn't happen here. And right in the middle of our city, how many people actually walked from Ala Moana to Dole Cannery? And how many people even would? That's directly in the middle of our city, and nobody wants to walk it. We have one of the most unwalkable cities in the nation. We're the 10th largest city, and nobody wants to walk. Everybody uses their car. The difference is, like, for instance, you go in San Francisco, and you're walking around, and it's the way that they develop that allow you to feel like you want to walk, because they have mixed use. You have stores on the bottom, you have apartments at the top. The pedestrian experience is very stimulating. You can keep walking and walking in New York, in Chicago, in Seattle, in Portland, but not the case in Honolulu. Even in Mililani, you can't just go and walk to Safeway or Walmart. Everybody got to get in their car, and they got to drive. So most major cities, and this is where I think the potential of Honolulu is that around the rail, around a half-mile radius of each station, you see development. So that's what we're looking for, and hopefully you guys are going to be the ones to make this happen. Within the next 15 years, Honolulu is projected to have an additional 115,000 people. So where are they going to go? Where are we going to house it? Are we going to continue to build additional sprawl? And sprawl is not cheap either. Every time you build a new community, you got to build more roads, you got to build more sidewalks, you got to build additional schools, you got to build a police station, a fire station. And then on top of that, now you have to raise people's taxes because you have to pay for the maintenance of all that infrastructure. If you were to build one building in the urban core, 400 units, and you go up, you don't have to build any new sidewalks, any new roads, any new fire stations, any new schools. So all that cost of government doesn't exist when you build density. Every time you build urban sprawl, you're expanding what government not only has to build but maintain. So there's different costs involved. You know, it's easy to look at the rail system by itself, but what are the opportunity costs and the side effects of developing additional sprawl to accommodate people? And what does it mean for Honolulu if we're going to just continue to build track housing and more roads? Is that what we want? Or do we really want to create Honolulu that is the center of the Pacific, where we have diplomacy, we have economics, we have culture, and it truly is the center of the Pacific?